The fog descends slowly, like a shroud. It swathes the streets, seeps into the earth, crawls into the lungs. But this is no ordinary fog. It is the breath of the otherworld, a warped reflection of reality, where every whisper of the past takes on flesh. Silent Hill F does not terrify with sudden screams, it terrifies with the truth. The monsters here are not born in darkness. Their gestation is society itself. Their bodies are stitched from fear, shame, and centuries of violence. Each one is not merely an enemy, but a mirror reflecting the most rotten facets of human culture. This is no fabrication. It is a nightmare grown from the soil of reality. And now, we will step into it, step by step, toward the beings that dwell on the boundary between the human and the inhuman. I welcome you in Save Room Archives. Today we will take another deep dive in Silent Hill F lore and learn more about its monstrous creatures. Before we begin, I must say that my channel is less than 3 weeks old, so every like and subscription are extremely important for channel success. Kashimashi, like nightmares brought to life, dolls of flesh stitched together from scraps of human bodies. Their silhouettes are broken parodies of the female form, pitiful, distorted reflections of former beauty. Are they dolls or mannequins? The answer is lost in the rustle of their approaching steps. Not a single line of their bodies was shaped by kindness. Each contour is the result of crude molding by someone else's hands, forms imposed by men. Even their name, Kashimashi, a Japanese word used derisively to describe women as noisy and annoying, has been turned into a weapon. A crude, belittling nickname made flesh, it becomes a relentless entity that hunts Hinako. But the true horror lies not in their appearance, but in how they move. Their bodies jerk in spasms like broken marionettes, twisting at unnatural angles, their joints snapping as if they were never truly theirs. And that's because they aren't. They were assembled, not born. Thick stitches snake across their skin, emphasizing their artificiality. They were pieced together like lifeless exhibits, a grotesque imitation of male fantasies. They have no faces, no features, no eyes, no individuality, only mutilated masks. Their faces, if one can call them that, are torn, restitched, and pulled into eternal grimaces of submission. Smiles carved into flesh hold no joy. They are snarls frozen on the skin, masks of obedience, branded into their very flesh to erase any sign of identity. The result is a form stripped of humanity, an empty shell, a dehumanized ideal hammered into existence by societal expectations. They do not attack out of rage, but out of fractured identity. In their frantic lunges toward Hinako, they are trying to drag her into the same faceless pit from which they themselves can never escape. Their attacks are a punishment for defiance, a desperate demand that she bend, become what they were forced to be. Kashimashi are a flesh-bound commentary on the reality of 1960s Japan, when a woman's worth was defined by obedience and conformity. Their mutilated bodies are a chronicle of violence, of how they were reshaped into something they never wished to become. They embody corporeal horror as a social mirror, the first living reminder to Hinako that her struggle is not only against monsters, but against the very system that gave birth to them. Ayakakashi embody a different face of horror. They stand motionless among the rice fields or in the dim corridors of Ebisugaoka School, wrapped in tattered school uniforms, bound with ropes as if prepared for some forgotten ritual. Their faces are deathly pale, smooth like masks, with blank pupils frozen in unnatural stillness. They wait, patiently, silently, and when Hinako draws near, the silence bursts like overstretched skin, and they erupt into sudden, spasmodic movement. The air itself turns into a snare, and the peaceful field becomes a trap. The name Ayakakashi has its roots in Japanese folklore. The ancient word Ayakashi referred to strange yokai, supernatural entities that linger at boundaries, by rivers, at the sea, or at the edges between worlds. The second part, Kakashi, means scarecrow. Together they form scarecrow yokai, lifeless figures standing in the fields, capable of springing to life at any moment to attack. For Hinako, their presence is painfully personal. As a child, she was an outcast, a target of mockery and bullying. The children in her town avoided her, sneered at her, lashed out with words meant to wound. The Ayakakashi are the embodiment of that childhood cruelty. They lie in wait to catch her off guard, just like the smiles of her classmates, once masked another vile scheme. Their attacks drag her back into the past, into that cold, poisonous silence when she realized that even among her own, she was never truly safe. But the most grotesque horror lies in the details. Silent Hill's monsters are never designed just because. Their gait, their strikes, their twisted postures, all are physical manifestations of something deeper, something that often requires close study to fully grasp. Every detail tells a story. Ayakakashi are bound, mutilated children, beings that smile at you to your face and, the moment you look away, lunge for your throat. Their bodies are contorted. The girls among them wear short school skirts, their limbs cinched tight with ropes that force them into vile, unnatural poses. The sight of these students turned into scarecrows hints at rot festering within the school itself. A place that should have been a refuge has become a breeding ground for hidden cruelty and corruption. Ayakakashi are childhood taunts made flesh, twisted into bodily nightmares. They carry the memory of every whisper behind her back, every gaze filled with rejection. Standing in the mist-covered fields, they do not wait for a random victim. They wait for her, to remind her once more that loneliness and betrayal can haunt just as relentlessly as any monster. Harai-katashiro are among the most unsettling figures to cross Hinako's path. Their name derives from ritual dolls once used in purification ceremonies to banish evil. But within that origin lies a grim irony. Instead of driving out impurity, they have become its vessels. A ritual meant to cleanse suffering has turned into its living embodiment. They hunt Hinako armed with blades, their faces hidden behind eerie masks. Where their legs should be are sharp, gleaming knives. Each step they take doesn't leave a footprint. It leaves a cut. Blades for legs are a potent symbol, tied to Silent Hill F's central theme. Women who have been reforged into pleasing shapes, forced into social roles that wound them. They no longer stand on their own feet. They stand on instruments of pain. Their ability to move forward depends on self-destruction. Every step is a strike against themselves, a price paid in blood to satisfy the warped desires of others. Their design evokes a world where a woman's place can only be earned through self-inflicted suffering, where every step toward a husband's approval leaves a new scar. A world where the female body becomes a tool of pain and boundless endurance is treated as a virtue. Their faces are concealed behind okame masks, traditional symbols of joy, fertility, and the ideal of the good wife. In Japanese culture, the okame mask represents smiling through suffering, domestic cheerfulness, and unquestioning devotion. But on the Harai-katashiro, the mask becomes demonic. The forced, artificial smile is warped. The smooth white mask is cracked, unable to contain the darkness seething beneath it. Shadows leak through the fissures, pressing against the fragile facade. This is not a face of joy. It is a brand of submission forced onto living flesh. Blades and masks together create a terrifying image born from two intertwined forms of suffering. Physical, when freedom is sliced away piece by piece, turning the body itself into a trap for both self and others. And emotional, when women are expected to smile even as pain cuts through them from within. For Hinako, encountering the Harai-katashiro is deeply personal. She sees in them not just enemies, but a reflection of the world that seeks to mutilate her in the same way. Their blades are not merely weapons, they are the physical manifestation of what she is expected to become. Even the most natural act, walking, has been turned into torture. Every step they take is a warning. When society forcibly reshapes the body into a tool of submission, even moving forward becomes agony. Harai-katashiro are living weapons carved from the image of what a woman is supposed to be in the eyes of traditional society. The Shackled Monster, an unofficial name, but a fitting one. Shibarare-shi Kaibutsu, meaning bound or shackled monster, appears the moment Hinako first crosses into the otherworld. Its wrists, ankles, and neck are cinched with shackles and chains. The metal has bitten so deeply into its flesh that it's impossible to tell where the links end and the meat begins. Its body isn't just restrained, it is literally forged from the chains that confine it, as though each link was shaped not by a blacksmith, but by social norms and traditions. But the most terrifying part is its face. It doesn't have one, at all. Where eyes, mouth, and features should be gapes a smooth, indifferent void, like a mask of flesh that's been wiped clean. This faceless emptiness is more chilling than any scream. The shackled monster cannot see Hinako, but it hears her. It hunts by sound, forcing her to move while holding her breath, because even the slightest noise could cost her life. In Japanese culture, the face is more than physical features. It is the self, personality, emotion, identity. It is how society sees you and how you see others. To erase the face is to strip away humanity. The shackled monster embodies men forced to erase their own selves in order to conform to socially imposed roles. In their attempt to uphold power, they lose their identity, becoming empty vessels, chaining themselves to the image of what they are supposed to be. Around its throat hangs a massive lock, a symbolic brand that seems to rob it of its voice. It does not speak, because silence is its role, to embody mute violence. Its existence itself is a reminder of the rigid boundaries on which society is built. And if you thought Silent Hill F was simply a feminism-wrapped tale steeped in Japanese symbolism, well, yes. But it also shows that men in traditional society are prisoners too, bound by social and cultural frameworks that one cannot escape without losing social acceptance. And in such societies, outcasts rarely survive. Men, like women, are forced to follow these rules. The design of Shibarare-shi Kaibutsu reflects this duality. Not all men are monsters. Many are victims of their era, their social roles, and the pressures surrounding them. They too have been chained to the image of the master, their own faces erased. But for Hinako, that distinction doesn't matter. Whoever he was, inside, the outcome is the same. Violence directed at her and those like her. Society doesn't need a voice to suppress individuality. It is the monster, crushing anyone who resists through these faceless, silent enforcers. Shibarare-shi Kaibutsu is more than just an enemy. He is a faceless warden of the system, a man turned into an instrument of subjugation, destined to be so even before birth, unable to resist the role forced upon him. His chains are not trophies, but shackles, both weapon and restraint, defining the frame he must inhabit from birth to death, and perhaps beyond. His faceless head is a yawning abyss into which all humanity has vanished. To Hinako, he is the reflection of the cruelty that shaped her life. Men never needed words to remind women of their place. This monster is the silent, undeniable proof. The glowing monster, Hako Monsuta, is one of the most repulsive and blunt creatures Hinako encounters. Its appearance isn't shrouded in mist or surprise. It's invasive, close, unmistakably direct. In her diary, Hinako describes its greedy, lustful eyes and greasy hands, always groping and sliding, as if searching for any excuse to touch. But the most horrifying thing is its behavior. This monster acts in a disturbingly familiar, friendly way, like an old acquaintance creeping closer, as if violation were the norm. Unlike other creatures that stalk or lie in wait, the Hako Monsuta attacks openly. It lunges, knocks Hinako to the ground, pins her, and licks her. This act turns the encounter from a fight into a scene of overt assault, intrusive, sticky, inescapable. The monster's design leaves little room for interpretation. It represents men who stare, grope, and invade, ignoring women's personal boundaries. It is the physical embodiment of harassment. Its attack isn't some abstract supernatural evil. It's something many women have experienced since childhood. Its movements are aggressive but clumsy, bursts of brute force that quickly give way to exhaustion. It acts instinctively, with a pathetic persistence reminiscent of men who treat harassment as natural behavior. It's not a hunter. It's a parasite that forces its way into personal space uninvited. The presence of this monster in the game doesn't scare in the usual way. It forces players to relive something Hinako and countless women endure in real life. The scene is intentionally uncomfortable. The player is placed in a situation where the violation is inevitable, resistance difficult. But the most devastating part is Hinako's reaction. In her diary, she describes the encounter with a single word: typical. Even as a child, she expected this kind of behavior. Moments like this don't shock her or throw her off. They're simply part of everyday life. That is where the true horror lies, the normalization of violence. The Hako Monsuta embodies the collective reality of women condemned to live in a world where such acts are routine. Hinako suffers not only from the monster's attack, she suffers from the fact that she isn't surprised, and that is what makes the Hako Monsuta one of the most memorable monsters in Silent Hill. It isn't foreign to Hinako. On the contrary, it's painfully, disturbingly familiar. Ara-Abare is a monster swollen like an infected wound, pulsing like living meat on the verge of bursting from within. Its body is a grotesque landscape of bloated, fleshy tumors, exposed organs spilling outward, and ominous meat-like flowers blooming straight from its wounds. Its name means wild rage, frenzied rampage, and every one of its movements embodies that meaning with terrifying precision. It swings its monstrous blade without direction or restraint, a physical manifestation of uncontrollable fury with nowhere to go. This isn't a calculated attack. It's a blind storm of destruction, expanding on its own. In her diary, Hinako describes it as a revolting lump of flesh stuffed to the brim with maddened rage. Not merely animalistic, but something worse, because this rage is permitted, unchecked, and boundless. If the Kashimashi embody flesh broken and smothered by social conformity, then Ara-Abare is their opposite. It represents the men who enforce those rules through force, through power, shouting, and fists. In the 1960s, Japan, women lived between systematic oppression and the constant threat of direct violence. A single act of disobedience, a wrong look, an unwelcome word, and a husband's fury could come crashing down on them. Ara-Abare is that warning made flesh. It has no eyes, no ears, only a gaping, roaring maw and a twisted, fleshy arm tipped with a massive blade. It doesn't see, hear, or think. It only smashes. Its rage is aimless, self-sustaining, sanctioned by centuries of silence. Its appearance makes one thing clear: male rage is not a side effect of the nightmares surrounding Hinako. It's one of their sources, feeding and sustaining the horror itself. Ara-Abare is the storm from which monsters are born. The drum monster, Taiko Monsuta, is a towering giant whose mouth has been mutilated and transformed into an altar of sound. Inside its gaping maw is a massive taiko drum, fused tightly into the flesh. Each strike shatters the silence into fragments, filling the air not with simple noise, but with a vibration that sinks into the bones. In ordinary life, the taiko is a symbol of unity, ritual, and celebration. Its sound brings people together, filling their hearts with strength. But within this monster, the cultural symbol is perverted, turned into a tool of domination. The taiko is no longer the voice of community. It has become a weapon of authority. Every beat is a command. Every booming strike is a declaration of dominance. It drowns everything else out. Its presence fills every corner of space, leaving no room for other voices. Its relentless pounding is invasive, inescapable. Near it, speaking is impossible. Thinking is difficult. The air trembles with its thunder. The drum shakes the ground, the walls, even Hinako's body. It feels as though the monster is hammering the world into its own rhythm, denying anyone the right to their own voice. It represents male power built on sheer volume, on the right to be heard simply because one is louder. It embodies men who fill every space around them, demand attention, and silence others by their presence alone. For Hinako, Encountering the Taiko Monsuta is not just a battle against a monster, it's a confrontation with the very structure of a world where loudness equals power, and her voice is drowned in the monstrous din. Its drum is like a grotesque throat, screaming without pause so that no one else can speak. It doesn't communicate, it overwhelms. And that is no less terrifying than claws or teeth. The Taiko Monsuta is a living metaphor for a society where the loudest one rules. Its strikes strip away thought and meaning, robbing people of the right to be heard. For Hinako, it becomes a tangible reminder. Living in a world where volume dictates power means fighting every day for the right to her own voice. Oi-omoi is not a single creature, but a fusion of countless doll-like bodies, melded together into a formless mass that screams in a piercing, skull-splitting chorus. Their cries seem to drill through the skull and burrow straight into the brain. The creature's name is derived from two words: oi, to carry, to bear a burden, and omoi, heavy feelings, deep thoughts. In other words, the weight of thoughts, the burden of emotions. And this monster embodies that immeasurable heaviness. Every limb of Oi-omoi is twisted, as though someone violently forced together pieces that were never meant to fit. Their bodies are doll-like, but grotesquely deformed, as if soft plastic had melted while bones were being twisted into a single tangled mass. Faces overlap, forming a living monument to pressure and despair, a tower of suffering built not from stone, but from screaming doll faces, frozen in eternal anguish. The prototype for this creature draws on celluloid dolls, cheap, mass-produced toys made from flammable plastic, popular in early 20th century Japan. Fragile and highly combustible, they were childhood symbols of innocence and carefree play, but always tinged with danger. Their lives were short, briefly loved, then discarded, disposable artificial bodies designed to evoke fleeting emotions. In the world of Silent Hill F, this fragility and disposability take on monstrous form. Oi-omoi is not just a merging of dolls, it is a mass of cast-off, unloved beings, fused into a single, screaming whole. Their screams never stop. The sound is unbearable, becoming a constant background presence like fog that refuses to lift. With every passing second, it grows louder, pressing on the chest, drowning out thought. Their bodies move slowly, viscously, like waves of human forms, but their mere presence makes it impossible to breathe. The air thickens, turning into a suffocating haze of pain. These dolls are like children raised in silence, on the verge of screaming out all the emotions they were forced to suppress. Oi-omoi is more than just an enemy. It is the weight of others' expectations given shape. It is a mind buried alive beneath layers of collective shame, grief, and demands. It is a chorus that never falls silent, because the society that gave birth to it never does. Oto Monsuta, the vomiting monster, feels like Oi-omoi's twisted sibling, torn from the depths of the otherworld and hurled into reality. Its body is a monstrous heap of crumpled faces, fused together into a grotesque mass of flesh. The faces are layered, flattened, deformed, as if someone kneaded human heads like clay and sculpted a faceless abomination out of them. From its gaping maw gushes thick, red bile, foul and steaming. Wherever it falls, vile flowers and fleshy tendrils bloom, writhing as if alive. They reach toward Hinako, eager to wrap around her, choke her, and drag her into their sticky, corrupted nest. If she approaches too closely, they seize her, and the floral appendages begin to drain her strength, leaving burning marks across her skin. In her diary, Hinako writes that these faces are unfamiliar to her, yet they act as if they've known her all her life. They spit out words, not literal ones, but tangible, viscous, poisonous things. Each word is like a clump of bile, contaminating the air around them. This monster is not just a creature, it is the toxic echo of society, where gossip and judgment permeate everything. At first glance, it may resemble the figure of a tyrannical father, the central face as the father, the others as family members forever bound to his body, unable to escape. When he spews his venom, they become part of his assault. But Otomonsuta is not a single person. It is a crowd. It is the collective faces of society, faceless, nameless, but disturbingly familiar. It is the physical embodiment of public shame, whispers behind one's back, gossip, and condemnation, forces that surrounded women in 1960s Japan from childhood onward. Any deviation from the norm became grounds for mockery and scrutiny. Its screams and retching bile don't cut like a knife, they burn like acid. This is not a frontal attack. It is insidious psychological violence emanating from the faceless masses behind Hinako. The monster is not just hostile, it is painfully familiar. Anyone who has ever been the subject of rumors, gossip, or public shame will recognize it. Those unknown faces, that chorus of nameless voices. This is not some external evil. It is an old, ingrained social habit made flesh. Gossip, condemnation, and rumor have taken on monstrous form. For Hinako, encountering Otomonsuta is like stepping into the center of a crowd that whispers so loudly it drowns out her own thoughts. She cannot argue with it. She cannot persuade it. She cannot defend herself. The only option is to stay clear of the poison it spews. The mother, Bokai, is a nightmare brought to full height. Towering like a distorted statue, her entire body is covered in swollen bellies, stacked one atop another, each stretched to its limit, ready to burst at any moment. Her form is not that of a woman. It is a factory of horrors, a machine of endless births, spewing new monsters into the world. Her image brutally lays bare a historical reality. For centuries, women were not seen as individuals, but as vessels for the continuation of someone else's lineage. A woman as a container for male legacy, soil for planting, a body destined to carry and suffer. Personality is irrelevant. Only fertility and the capacity to bear children matter. For Hinako, this monster is especially terrifying, not because of claws, teeth, or deformity, but because of the idea. The thought that her own body could be turned into a machine of endless reproduction is more horrifying than death. This is not an external threat. It is the threat of transformation into something else. But Bokai's form isn't limited to a single body. In truth, it consists of two. Above is the female body, swollen with stacked bellies, faceless, no eyes, no mouth. Where a face should be, yawns a void, a symbol of lost identity, like many of the monsters in Silent Hill F. This upper form embodies the image of a woman reduced to a function, a biological mechanism. Beneath it is the second half, a hunched, beast-like body with a long, rigid snout and distorted facial features. It carries the upper figure like a throne of suffering, a mute beast of burden. This lower form is not just a support, it's an allegory for the instinctive, oppressive forces that see women not as human beings, but as resources. It is the primal engine of society, the insatiable, cyclical mechanism of consumption upon which the mother, as a reproductive machine, is enthroned. For Hinako, Bokai is not just a monster. It's a warning, a reflection of the deepest fear, to be reduced not to a self, but to a function, to become part of a cycle in which her body is no longer her own. And with that, we've explored all the regular monsters of Silent Hill F. Soon, I'll be making a similar video about all the bosses. There's a lot of room for interpretation there too, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it, and like the video if you've made it this far. Thanks everyone for watching, and may all creepy stuff pass you by.